Hey everyone, welcome to Group Text. Okay, so the new docuseries, The Carters Hurts to Love You, is now streaming on Paramount Plus, and I gotta tell you, it is exceptional. The show takes an honest look at the success and struggles of both Nick and Aaron Carter. It also examines how the brothers' fame affected their parents, Jane and Robert, as well as their three sisters, Leslie, Bobby Jean, and Angel. The Carters features candid archival home video footage and intimate conversations between the last two remaining Carter kids, Nick and Angel, as they work to understand the tragic circumstances of their famous family. The series was directed by Soleil Moon Frye, who he first fell in love with as TV's Punky Brewster back in the 1980s and now has become a very serious documentarian. Angel and Soleil, welcome to Group Text.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. And I love seeing you.
I love seeing you.
I have to say, I always have the best memories of your mom when I first did Punky and Angel. It was so amazing. I went and guested there and she goes, why do you have two different colored shoes? And I was like, because I have two different feet. And I just always stands out as one of my joyful memories because she was so kind to me and you've always been so kind. So
well,
thank you.
No, thank you. So, okay, we have to get into a lot here. So this is not just, it's so much more than your run-of-the-mill documentary, scandalous pop star. So I have a lot of questions about that. But first, how do you two know each other?
That's a great question. We were introduced through James at Candle Media, and they wanted to make a film about Aaron after he passed away and came to me and he said, I want to introduce you to a few directors. And Soleil was the first one. And we just instantly connected.
I instantly fell in love with Angel.
Oh, what made you want to tell this story?
I met Angel and I was so blown away by her courage and her strength and just she had been through so much in her life and she had truly taken her pain and turned it into purpose and had really let the light into her heart. She was so beautiful and full of light and love despite having gone through so many challenges. And I really felt like this was such a universal story that so many of us can connect to because at its core, it really has to do with mental illness and addiction and our mental health. And that feels so universal to me. And so my dream was that through Angel's lens and courage, that we could really share a story that touches so many of our own families.
There had to be a minute, Angel and Soleil, where there was a moment where real trust was established. Because this, Soleil, like you just said, and we'll get into the whole mental illness thing. I'm actually the co-chair of the board of a major mental health organization here in Los Angeles. There has to be a level of trust, and it's two strangers. Was there a moment where you thought to yourself, I can be really honest? Because in these kinds of documentaries, if you are not honest, it feels soulless, and this does not feel soulless.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that if we were going to tell this story, it had to be the truth. And that unfortunately is going to include a lot of really ugly things that happened in our family dynamic. So I don't know. For me, I think just when I met Soleil, she was just so warm and loving and cared so deeply about making sure that the truth was told. And I also think, with her being a child star and understanding, what it's like to grow up with that lens, I knew that she would tell Aaron's part of it because I can only do so much as his sister. And I do know a lot, and obviously growing up in the family and being around and seeing things, but to actually be that person who is working like an adult and going through the day-to-day things and to have someone that had that same perspective, it just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know for Soleil for you what it was, but I just knew it was instant.
I really wanted to provide Angel a safe space to share her story, and she's just so incredible. And I think having grown up in this incredibly colorful world, I was very fortunate to have a grounded family, and so many of my friends went on to do incredible things and have these incredible careers and families, and some of my dearest friends didn't make it out. And so I had been through a great deal of loss with people that I really loved, like not superficial friends, but friends that were my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had been through a relationship right before Angel and I came together with someone who was dealing with his own addictions. And during the course of this documentary and making it, Angel lost her sister, and that person that was one of the great loves of my life died as well. And so my reason for sharing that is I feel like we were really there to support each other through these moments and through that pain and through that grief. And that is something that really bonds you forever, to be able to just take the mask off. I remember our first conversations, and I was opening up to her about, what I was going through, and she was opening up about her life. And so I feel like there was no judgment, and because so much of this for me, and I believe for us in this journey, is to destigmatize these conversations that are so important for us to have in our homes, with our families, with our children, with our teenagers. And so we were able to completely just let down the walls,
Right.
you know what I mean? And just be. And that, I feel like, really was the foundation
Right.
of that trust.
Grief is a great equalizer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really is hard to imagine a time when, at least for all of us, when the Backstreet Boys and Aaron were not a major part of pop music and pop culture. It wasn't just the music, it was also pop culture. What was your family like, Angel, before Nick became part of the Backstreet Boys and put the Carter family in the spotlight? Like, where were you from? How did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm from Florida. Nick was born in upstate New York, and my sister Bobby was also born in upstate New York. And my parents, they had troubles in their marriage back then, but I think moving to Florida was kind of a fresh start for them. So when they moved down there, they ended up getting involved. They had a retirement home, and that's what they did. They took care of elderly people. And, we as the kids, were a part of that as well. And Leslie was born in the retirement home, actually. And
That's
yeah, and
honey. That's an interesting story to explain to someone.
yeah, she was born in the retirement home. And I think after Leslie was born, they were done. It was just, we were going to have 3 kids. And then, my mom got pregnant again, and then found out later on it was twins. And, Aaron and I came about. But how we, how we were before. I mean, my earliest memories are just us playing as kids and swimming in the pool and, laughing and, making home videos together. We have so many home videos. I mean, my mom has a whole nother set of home videos that we did not even include in this documentary, but, yeah, so I just, early memories are just, being kids and having fun. And as far as when the Backstreet Boys happened, my mom, discovered Nick on a tree stump in our backyard just singing one day. And she was like, "Oh, he sounds pretty good. Maybe I should get him into music lessons." So he got into music lessons and started dancing. And, he did a ton of stuff in Tampa and in Orlando. And then he auditioned for the Backstreet Boys and actually auditioned for Mickey Mouse Club as well, and got picked for both and had to choose which one he was going to do. So he picked Backstreet Boys, and things just kind of took off from there.
I don't think people understand how much of a grind it is as an individual performer, especially like I'm thinking of like people who go on tour and singers. It's a real grind. But when you're trying to get all these people to dance together and sing together at the same time, I would imagine that it's even more pressure. And they were
Yeah.
so young.
So young.
How is that? What did your parents understand the level of pressure that was suddenly being put on their, I don't want to say immature, but their immature son? They are not adults.
Right. That's a great question, and I'll never be able to completely 100% answer that because I don't know. But what I do know is that for my mom, especially, I think she thought that this was our way out. That she saw how successful the Backstreet Boys were becoming and saw it as an opportunity for the family to get out of the situation that we were in, because the reality is that although my parents had a retirement home and were, making some money, we didn't have money. We came from nothing. My parents came from nothing. And so when money started coming in, I think it was just, oh my gosh, and then he's famous, and then all these things start happening, and then it was like, let's get Aaron into it. And Aaron wanted to be exactly like Nick, and idolized his brother, and also had a gift and was very talented, not just singing wise, but could play any instrument and could dance. And so it just snowballed after that.
How did Aaron end up opening for the Backstreet Boys? There had to be a lot of backroom conversations going on. And there's other people in the group who had siblings who I'm sure were also talented. How hard did your parents have to fight? There had to, because all of that, especially in a group, can build real resentment. And so, like, that in a cast, it can get very complicated when did they feel like he was being pushed in? How did that play out?
I think that the reality is that all of the boys, including Nick, were really supportive of Aaron. And there was never any feelings of jealousy or anything like that. I mean, actually, on Aaron's first album, Brian and Nick wrote a song for Aaron's album. Not just Nick, Brian as well, who's in the group, so they were very, very supportive. So I think it's just something that just came very naturally, and it just seemed like, the right thing to do. And also, Aaron was being managed by Lou Pearlman as well. So he was under that umbrella, already. So I think that I'm sure that there were a lot of conversations around that as well. But I think from the perspective of the boys and from Nick, that it was just, he's our little brother. We've got to help him.
Because you would imagine there would be hair pulling and all that between the parents of the other kids, but it sounds like also Lou, which is a whole different. Go watch a different
that's
show.
A whole other right.
What
I was going to say, one of the things that like really was so incredible to me was seeing the amazing archival of love that was there. There was so much love and support, and you see these incredible, beautiful moments between Nick and Aaron, and they're so loving, and you see again, like Angel was saying, it seemed like the Backstreet Boys, at least from what I saw, were like a family of brothers. And then you saw Aaron as part of that family. And that was something that I think was so beautiful about the archival. And one of the reasons, for me, like archival is such the treasure trove of sharing a story, because you're able to watch it through your own eyes, right? And that was so beautiful to really see, because we hear so much noise and we hear so many stories, and you're watching, these brothers that are climbing on each other and throwing each other over their shoulders, and just all of this love that's there. And that doesn't lie.
When did you start noticing things starting to change with Aaron?
Really, probably when my parents first separated when we were 11 years old. I just, he was really attached to my mom. And I think for me, because I had a different lens than him, as far as being like the sister who kind of really sat on the side and really, I was the observer in the family, the mediator in the family, and the one that kind of just like watched everything that happened and really just stuck to myself. But it was probably around 11, 12 years old, when my parents separated, and they separated for about 5 months. And Aaron went to live with my mom, and I chose my dad. So
That's hard.
yeah, it was really hard. It was
That's,
really hard.
I mean,
And she wanted me to live with her, but because I think she wanted to keep the twins together, but I always gravitated toward the parent that was, I felt was more responsible because of I had some years with my mom that were not really pleasant.
let's talk a little bit about mental health because it's a topic we're all fascinated in. The addiction and the mental health you speak about very honestly, and that these problems were prevalent in your family across the board, and it was a very open discussion. At what point did you personally start to say, someone's got to talk about this? Someone, I got to put my hand up and say, please tell me this isn't normal. Because when you're surrounded by it, you don't necessarily know what's normal and not normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the defining moment for me was when I was, 18 years old and we had finished filming. I talked about this in the documentary. We had finished filming House of Carters, and it was the last day. We weren't filming. It was just us in the living room, packing our bags, getting ready to leave and go off into the world. And, Nick sat us all down and said, "Who wants to go to therapy? I'll pay for individual therapy for all of you." And I raised my hand, and then I'm looking around and I'm like, oh, no one else is raising their hand. That's weird, but I'll go. And I took that opportunity and I seized it, and it really changed my life. It opened that up. And, Nick and I always had that in common. And after the show was finished, we really bonded over that and talking about mental health and physical health and wellness and being healthy and how do we make a change. And, you know, just having that willingness, you know what I mean? So I think that was like the defining moment for me. And I just, I was always the kind of person that I never had any shame. I think that, and as working in the mental health space too, there is a genetic component, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a personality component to
Mm-hmm.
it. And my personality is different than my siblings, and Nick's personality was different. We didn't have any shame in the things that, we made mistakes at when we were children. I have never hidden this, but I had a problem with drugs when I was 15, 16 years old. That is a real thing. And I have no shame around it. It is a part of what happened. And I can look at it as a 37-year-old woman now and say, I was a kid who grew up in this family and it, was in that world. And this is just, it's what happened. I have no shame. So, having that openness and that willingness to want to be better and to want to make a change and to not allow it to define me and to, brew inside of me.
Sitting here as a 37-year-old, do you look back and think about that 18-year-old and go, wow, that took a lot of courage to be the only one in the family to put their hand up?
I mean, saying it out loud, yeah, I guess it does take a lot of courage, and I don't really view myself like that. I guess that's probably something that I need to work on still, is to, hey, I'm worthy. Like I've got this, you know what I mean? Like I did that, and that was a courageous thing to do. And I should be proud of myself, I think that there's definitely, I look back at that 18-year-old girl and I'm like, wow, I've come a long way. A long way. And it took me years, I'm talking years of therapy to unpack everything that happened during our childhood. Literally, it took like 10 years, my whole 20s, like just really working really hard to like, and then finally it just clicked. And I was like, I don't even know that girl anymore. And I'm not her. And I haven't been living in that space, and I'm good and I'm
I
okay.
mean, and that's amazing. So, but what was also amazing was, this is a very strange pivot, who was taking the home movies? And this is the second time home movies have been really a jumping off point for you, Soleil, which is very interesting. I mean, who suddenly decided, let me pick up a camcorder? Because it was not like today where they record, you worry you're going to get hit by, a bus in the street and no one's going to help you because they're so busy filming.
Yeah.
Who picked up the camcorder first?
You know what? It's either my mom or my dad. I don't know who picked it up first, but I will tell you, we have thousands and thousands of hours of home videos, and then it got Nick into like making videos. And as kids, I remember we would just, Nick didn't really want to be a singer. He actually wanted to be a movie director. Is what he was really passionate about. And he would always have us acting out stuff, and we would play war outside and just be kids and be filming. So it just, I mean, we've got a ton of home videos. So I think it was just a collective thing amongst the family.
Okay, Soleil, an embarrassment of riches going through all these home movies that had been amassed over so many years. You'd already done that with your own things with Kid 90, so you knew how to sit and watch and understand the process. Did your point of view or intentions change once you started watching all these home movies and watching all this footage?
It was incredibly emotional because you're watching so much love within a family, and joy, and Easter mornings, and things that we can connect to so much because we relate them to our own families. And then these moments of such pain that these children were going through, and that was incredibly emotional, as someone who loves so deeply and has children and loves Angel so much, and Angel had never seen the footage before. So that those layers of peeling back the onion, and also for me, again, Archival is, I think, so much of the backbone of the unfolding of these incredibly human stories. And so there'd be times where I would listen so closely to pump up the volume to hear what was really being said. And there was moments that were shocking, for me to hear or see. And ultimately at the same time, like we were speaking about earlier, it's so universal.
Yeah.
Because every household has some kind of chaos, right? Or every home, you can touch or feel or connect to someone in your life that is struggling in some way. And so it felt to me like I really I connected to it. And then I certainly connected to the incredible footage of watching the pressure that it was both that the kids were going through. Because the moments when you watch Nick in front of the piano and he's standing so stoically and he's working so hard and just giving his all to it, or Aaron rehearsing for hours upon hours upon hours, and you're watching this and you're watching him being such a people pleaser and also loving performing, but at the same time, wanting to give his all. And for me, it struck me so much, from a human level, and also thinking of all of the most amazing, iconic, people who we've loved throughout life who are no longer with us, musicians and artists and performers. And it really did make me wonder to what extent are people pushed to, or what are their breaking points. And everybody's breaking point is different. So again, like, it just became something that I was like, we have to have these conversations. These are ongoing struggles that I think growing up, so many struggle behind closed doors, and kind of, these secrets that we just shove under the rug. And so my hope was that it would start to encourage more conversations of us not feeling so alone and isolated in what we're going through.
Okay, you just said that, Angel, you had not seen a lot of this footage. Why?
Yeah, right,
Because they
Angel?
were all on VHS still. They weren't digitized. Yeah. So
First
I just
moment,
handed them
even-
over to Soleil. I had no idea. It was, I trust you that much that you can take all of this.
The
When
first time you're watching it is literally when she's watching it on the screen is the first time that she actually was watching it. So the audience, we're watching
we're going
it,
on the journey with her.
that was one of the most painful experiences of my life, because she was watching it for the first time. And at the same time, I felt like there was an honesty that we were experiencing it with her. And that was a very painful experience as someone that loves her so deeply.
When you were going through the footage, you know, and again, we all say hindsight is 20/20, and you had to step back and take a director's point of view, especially with a story that was very similar, not in what happened and how it played out, but understanding the pressure, understanding the behind the scenes, understanding the work. You had to step out of that mindset. I was as a director and watch from John Q. public. Was there a moment where when you were watching all this footage, when you could stop and say, that is really where it went wrong? This was the turn.
I literally, and I mean this completely, I don't feel like there was a real separation between the director and myself. The amount of times I cried on calls with Angel or with the streamer that we were working with, and their empathy, and times that I ran to the bathroom having to throw up because I was like processing the emotions, and like it makes me emotional even speaking about it right now. I think that the empathy and the love, like I have to love the people that I'm sharing this experience with. And I think it's why I hope it resonates with people, because I wasn't viewing it as a director so much as a human being who thank God, gets to be an instrument for something so much larger than me. Do you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
You know, the reality too, this is really important. Even if we didn't have fame and money, we still would have ended up in the same position.
100%. 100%. Mental illness does not care about your socioeconomic
Addiction, all
level.
those things, they were already there long before the fame. Fame just made it, heightened it even more, but
made it more accessible because people also were scared to say no.
Yeah.
Which is a whole
to your
get the
point,
kids the help they needed.
Yeah.
To your point around the trust thing, there was a moral responsibility as a director to create a safe space. Do you know what I mean? When I'm saying like there was me, but it's like I had to still be me. What that though allowed, I think there was this incredible moment in time when when Angel and I went to Chicago, and Nick and she came by and literally we had a little tiny hotel room, and she was like, hey, we're stopping by. And they stopped by, and I could notice as a human being, his face was very flushed, like, you know, like, and there was just this like human feeling of it felt like he had to share something, you know? So the human side, and also like the fact that, you know, that I've been on this journey with them is like, oh my God, I want to provide a safe space. And then all I had on me was my phone, right, to be able to document. And so there's that moment of of pointing to it. And it almost became, you know, like we almost all had this like a sign language type of thing of like just this trust in each other, you know? And so there was just that moment of like, is it okay to capture whatever's happening right now?
Or do I just let it,
you know,
be?
And so it wasn't even like, I don't even think there was even talk about it. It was kind of like, it just all happened. And then the next thing I knew, I was witnessing Angel and Nick share this incredible experience of them communicating with each other about growing up, and him sharing the story of losing his brother for the first time. And so that's so many, you know, there's so many layers there, you know, and I would hope that is what makes our stories compelling to share, is that there's that connectivity that we all, you know, that we all share throughout it. So
no, that makes complete and total sense, because I think about, I just was producing a special, and you sit in the edit and there's stuff you love that you're like, gotta go for time. You know what I mean? It's like anything when you're editing it, you're like, oh, but I think that's the funniest joke. Oh, crap. You know what I mean? What moment do you have to, and I hate the word sacrifice, but that you loved but didn't necessarily make the story move forward, that you finally had to say, I got to give this one up?
You know what? I feel like we had an amazing team that really supported us in it. There was a moment where there was a song that I wanted so badly, and oh my goodness, are we gonna get this song in? It was like the 11th hour, and it came through. So I mean, that was a moment where I was like, no. But the other thing was, something that I will say that was really important to me, and I did really want to make sure that it was in there, and I was really fortunate that they supported me on this. Was that we heard Aaron's voice from the other side, and ultimately you hear from him after he's passed away. So in a traditional film, somebody might say, well, why are we hearing from that person after they've, and for me it's like there's something about that callback. There's something about we felt like Aaron's been with us on this entire journey, so artistically, creatively, it felt like part of our process. So there's always times that I'll lean into something that I'm very passionate about.
Something really struck me, Angel, was when you and Nick realized there's just the two of you left. It is an emotion that I can tangibly pull up every day, because I remember, first I lost my dad, and then when my mom passed, I only have one child. I have no siblings. And I realized there was just the two of us.
Wow.
So it was a very visceral moment for me.
Right.
Where is your relationship now?
With Nick?
With Nick.
I mean, he was just here this morning.
But that's wonderful.
He was just here this morning. He was he watched us on Good Day LA, and he came and hang out with Harper and my husband. And he's been working in town because he has Stagecoach this weekend and the Sphere coming up. So he's been in LA a lot. He lives in Vegas. And
the Sphere is so cool.
Every time he comes to town, they book him a hotel room. Every single time he comes here, he likes being in our home. He's like, he feels safe here, and anytime that we can spend together, we do. We just got back from Vegas. All the kids were together for Easter, so listen, Nick and I are very close, and I'm very thankful that I have him. And we always say that there's the memories, right, of what happened to you in your childhood, right? You can always think of the memories, but there's also a feeling, and you can tap back into that feeling at any moment. And that includes the bad stuff too. And when you grow up in that household and you're going through what you're going through, there's it's just a certain feeling that you can go back to at any moment. And to have someone who completely understands what that's like, I mean, it's a gift, and I'm thankful to have him, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It's, people always say to me, oh, you're so strong. And it's like, well, I didn't ask to be this way. I didn't want this, and I think that as the surviving, siblings, you have survivor's guilt. You feel badly because you wish that they could be here too, and that they could have had the life that you have. And I'm so thankful that I have everything that I do, and that, I'm okay. Like mentally, I'm okay. Emotionally, I'm okay. And I am strong, so to have somebody that can walk that path with me is a blessing.
That it is. The Carters, Hurts to Love You, now streaming on Paramount Plus. I could talk to you guys forever. I mean, it's been such a pleasure. Everyone needs to see it. It is not only a beautiful documentary, it's fascinating as well. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.